Hi guys, welcome back to the Butterfly Effect podcast. I'm your host, joined as always by Jack.
How's it going?
And yeah, this is part 5 of Detroit Become Human. So, let's get straight into it. We're playing as Kara, and this is the Zlatko chapter. So, Jack, just tell us about everything that happened here and your thoughts when you rocked up to this mansion.
Yeah, so I suppose the first thing is entering the mansion. It's not as impressive as a Carl's mansion, but again, like they're just so good at doing these sorts of environments, like the juxtaposition between the dirty, grotty houses, and then you've got these slightly lavish mansions. But yeah, he takes you in, doesn't he? And he basically promises you that he'll try to get you somewhere safe, and the way he does that is he'll take your tracker off of you. I was naturally a bit sceptical because I remember walking in the door and you could see like it goes down to a basement. I don't know, just like whenever I see a basement, I'm thinking, nah, there's something dodgy going on here. But it is good. Like, to be fair, like to the guy who did the voice acting for Zlatko, he did sort of kind of put you in that area where like maybe he's trying to help you, but like in order for the story to progress, something did need to go wrong, and it surely did. So to be fair, like Alice was the one that was a little bit skeptical. I think I was more reassuring to her.
Yeah, I just want to say as well, was there a particular point where you kind of was like, yeah, this guy's bad news? Or was it all the way up until the point where he kind of has you bounded and then you're just like, yeah, by the way, yeah, tracker's up, I think.
Yeah, the first moment was going down into the basement, and then there you saw like the cages. I remember you could like look into the cages, and I was thinking at the time like I can't see what's in there. And then he said, "Go stand over there," and I was thinking, yeah, this doesn't look like what I thought it would be.
I feel it might have been because a lot of people have voiced that they knew what was coming a mile off, and I think maybe they could have hit it a little better, maybe if they didn't make it such a ominous setting. So I really like the setting, but it wasn't helped by the fact there was cobwebs everywhere and it was a stormy night. It almost just looked like a bad omen rocking up to this place. But yeah, like I was a little thrown off, I must admit, by the fact that when you first go, he kind of denies you on the first time. So it's like I would have been a bit more skeptical if he was just like, yeah, come into my house.
Yeah,
So yeah, but no, I thought it was really well done. Really, Quantic Dream really are just great at building suspense. Especially shown by when you are locked up and you have limited time to get out before your memory resets. How did that scene go for you, and what did you think of it?
I found it quite tense actually, because you look left and right and you can see the memory reset thing, like the bar was going up, and I don't know. I knew that there was just, even before when he's talking, I think, is there a way I can get out? But I knew at this particular bit, I was thinking, right, there's things I've got to do to get out. And let's face it, I completely fluffed my lines. I think I kicked the trolley away to the right. I think I knocked something over like a crate to the left. But I know you told me, didn't you, that you had to like look up and like pull some wires in order to get out. So for me, it must have got to 100% because then come up saying that your memory's completely been wiped, and that then prompts you to then have to go and get those memories back somehow to save Alice.
I must admit, on my blind playthrough, it was exactly the same. I actually failed the sequence, but it's not the worst thing. It doesn't result in a death, and if anything, I actually think it makes the level a little bit cooler. You've got to go around the house, and you've got to, find various things, retrace your steps almost, to kind of remember who you are. And it has this little scribbled sort of message you have to decipher. And each time you find a little clue, whether you're finding, I don't know, Todd's, pipe that he smoked out of to kind of, unlock a memory. It just gradually came up with "my name is Kara," and then you remember who you are. And you don't get that if you escape first time. So I don't know, from a personal point of view, I actually think it's cooler if your memory does get wiped. It's just a nice little cool feature there. But yeah, and also I must say, it's just Alice is having a terrible time with like male figures, isn't she? You know, Todd punching her, you know, whipping out the belt. And you've got this Zlatko who, like, unleashes his rage because, you know, he gets bitten by Alice. I feel really bad for this poor girl, you know?
I've got to say, the Quantic Dream devs definitely have a type, don't they, in terms of like who to make a villain. They've got to be male, middle-aged. They're a bit scruffy. Maybe they've got a lot of facial hair or long hair. Because I look at Zlatko, Todd, and Leo. They all seem to like roughly fit within that mould.
Even in Heavy Rain, you've got the creepy guy Paco in the club. You've got the weird surgeon. They're all around that age, aren't they?
Yeah. Obviously, I did then sort of start to explore around the house. Actually, speaking of which, I met Luther in the living room first. And then obviously I then went upstairs and I started looking around. I could see that there was like an android polar bear, which I thought, you know what, I was stuck by the rule that animals are friendlies. So I was like, yeah, I'll let him out.
While we're talking of the androids as well, you met the prisoners down in the basement as well, didn't you?
Oh, of course, yeah. Which again, like at this point, I think, like, yeah, all the androids, I've come to the conclusion that it's wise to sort of like have the androids on side, especially given like how Kara's story's developing anyway.
It builds up the darkness of the whole world and the division as well, that, you know, this is what Zlatko's for. He's not there to get you across the border to Canada, but he simply sees you as like a toy where he wants to make you a monster, something for his amusement anyway. And it really is dark that he was planning to, like, you know, use you for that, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and the fact that he was willing to do it in front of a little girl as well just sort of shows how sadistic he is and sort of how much of a character he's it shouldn't be liked really.
But yeah, like obviously you know, you're serving him, aren't you? And then, you know, you have all this limited time to you know, you eventually reset your memory. I think at this point you found enough evidence to remember who you are, and then your objective comes in, save Alice. So you found Alice, and then the next scene that comes up was just dead tense, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So they then find out that the girl's gone missing, whether that's like yourself or Alice, and you then got to escape. And I was looking at the clock, it's sort of like you've got 40 seconds to escape. I knew about sort of like the front door and I saw the back door previous. I was thinking, how am I getting down there? But it actually worked out in such a way where I don't know if like one of the timers like stopped and then another one started for like a hide sequence. But like each time you went into a room, there was like a wardrobe or a table to hide under. And I went in the wardrobe. And it's funny because when I did that cutscene, I was naturally like holding on to the triggers. But I do wonder, like, if I let go, having thought that I completed the QTE, would Kara have like just swung the door open and like Luther or Zlatko, I'm already muddling them up. Zlatko would just be stood there and then they'd get you or something like that.
Yeah, it is really easy to get caught in this scene. I mean, on my blind playthrough, I certainly did, and eventually you did as well. Admittedly, for me, I got caught a lot earlier than you did. For me, it was around the second room. I think I left the wardrobe too early, and I think there's a point where Zlatko comes back in, and he just literally opened the door and I was right there. We were just staring at each other. I'm pretty sure that's what happened from memory. But for yourself, you got all the way to the room in the far corner with like where the polar bear was in, and it was just a case of a flashlight catching you, wasn't it?
Yeah, you have to move from one object or something to another, and I saw him put the flashlight on the part that I wanted to go to next. So as soon as it pulled away, I was like, right, I'm going to make a move now. But like sod's law, the light then caught me as I was moving there.
Yeah.
And obviously then it's brought this situation where he's then got the shotgun. Thankfully, because I released the polar bear, it then was able to like distract him for a moment while we carried on running. And it's just really tense because like the QTEs, at least what I think anyway, they can come up like anywhere randomly on the screen, and you've got to sort of dodge the shotgun bullets. And you really do, and the music and everything, it really amps up the tension. It makes you feel like you've got to make these decisions on the fly, because, you know, if you take too much time, it could be costly. So in terms of like just setting an atmosphere, and like I say, tension, like Quantic Dream of like surpassed Supermassive for me. I know it's probably early doors to say that, but I just really like what they do with story and what they do with tension.
Of course, yeah, no, I mean, really brilliantly put. It was a really tense scene. There's also, there's just, I think when you saw the flowchart afterwards, you just noted how vast this scene can be, whether, you burn the house down, the fact that I believe Kara can actually die here as well, and there's a bunch of stuff with that kind of intruder, or sort of like the guard in the bathtub that can give you away and sell you out if you hang in there for too long.
Yeah.
But eventually, yeah, you managed to escape. I think you did the right thing earlier on. You checked the back door, you opened it. So I'm assuming when you got to the front door and back door, you noticed. You probably remembered that, yeah, the back door's unlocked.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you got there, and it was a really interesting conclusion. I think it's one you probably didn't see coming, was it?
No, it wasn't. So like we got out the back door, and Alice, like that, I thought they were just going to run off into the distance, but then they randomly stop, and Ara says to Alice, "You go, you run." And I'm thinking, what are you doing being a hero? Like, you've got out, just carry on running. But they both turn round, and Zlatko and Luther, which is his like android, are both there. And I'm thinking, he's got the shotgun, I've had it, maybe I needed to run out the front door. And then randomly, like, Luther's like, "No, I'm gonna sort of like protect you," and he stands in front of Zlatko's gun. Now this quite eerie sequence happens that I really liked, where because of all of the other androids, they come out almost like zombies in a way, which again is like such a nice a nice nod to like horror. And he meets his demise, I imagine, and then Luther tells you that he will help you out to get to where you want to be, and he knows someone. So
Yeah.
an incredible scene, really tense, and it just sort of reinforces a lot of the themes we've seen so far. Like, humans, they're very difficult to trust in this world.
Lots of praise for the scene, the amount of sheer variety you can have. Even in that final scene, you can have the burning building that happens. And just the fact that you've recruited Luther now, who is a fan favourite of the game, so you'll get to see what Luther brings to the table. So are we happy to move on to the next Connor sequence?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So obviously, I mean, we don't have to dwell on the Zen Garden scene too much. Amanda giving you a bit of shade that you didn't catch the deviant, and then updates you that there's been another deviant case nearby for you to check it out. So you've got to pick up Hank in this scene, and I really like this. It's not too key to the story, but a nice little bit of fun where you get more development between Connor and Hank, where you get to sort of see where Hank lives and go into his private life. So yeah, just tell us all about this scene.
Yeah, so you approach Hank's house and you can like look in the window, and I think I saw Sumo, and then I walked around the back and saw him lying there on the floor with a gun and some like whiskey or something on the floor, and you break in, and of course you like try to bring him round, and he says that he was playing Russian roulette, and that's quite strange. So I know it popped up on the screen that he has suicidal tendencies, and I did actually build this theory slightly earlier that I think the reason why Hank hates deviants is maybe he lost a loved one. And while it's not confirmed, I feel like my argument has got some strength moving forward, because when you leave Hank later on, when he's like vomiting in the toilet, you can like look around his house, and I found a photo of his son who is deceased. So I'm going to run off the theory at the moment that the deviant killed his son, and that's why he's like acting so cold with Connor at the start of the game. But no, nonetheless, really cool scene. Like you said, with like the last stop and the wardrobe, you get to pick what item of clothing you give to Hank. There's quite comedic moments as well, where you could like push him back into the bath and like run the shower, so he's absolutely freezing cold.
Even when you just get to slap his face, and he's just
of course, yeah, when you're bringing him round. Yeah, no, that's great. So there are little like drip feed of comedic moments in there, which personally I really like. I was saying before, like, it's an excellent game, but I wonder if it's going to have some like charming elements to it, and like I think this particular scene did do that quite nicely. So
I think Connor and Hank are just my favourite duo in the game. I think a lot of people might be in agreement with me, and this scene is one of the reasons why. You get to learn out more about Hank. I know a lot of people, or I played with one person in the past who just, was pretty hostile towards Hank because he's like, oh, we've got to do a mission, and you don't really dive deep and you don't get to discover these things. But when you dig a little deeper with Hank, you realise that there is, some trauma there. He's lost a son. That's going to be hard on anyone, surely. So yeah, just really cool, and it's just really amusing to sort of see almost like another father-son relationship, isn't it? Where he obviously doesn't want you around, but there are some comedic moments, especially when Ye's puking and you just like, get the fuck out of here. And the shower and the slap, I'm a big fan of this scene. But yeah, moving swiftly on, then we have Marcus, and this is the Jason Bourne mission, I guess.
Yeah.
It's called Spare Parts. I mean, you're thrown into this like agile sequence, aren't you, where you're jumping over like these sort of shipment containers, I guess, and they're all getting moved about. There's guards and drones everywhere. Marcus is getting quite a few like parkour scenes there, and they are quite enjoyable actually. It is different from just, it breaks up, dialogue and sort of, choices, walking around looking at clues. Marcus gets kind of the action heavy scenes, and although they're not my favourite, it is a nice change of pace, so I do really enjoy them. And again, I say it in every scene, it's just nice to see, there isn't a consistent tone, but I quite like that. I like the fact that we were just, thrown into like a mansion with cobwebs everywhere. Then I love the fact that we're in this small apartment that's a bit messy, and now I love the fact that we're at this big warehouse and this kind of like rain and lighting, and the lighting, it looks beautiful here. But yeah, just let us know about this Marcus scene, what you thought of it, and as always, tell us what happened in your playthrough.
Yeah, so honestly, really cool, the fact that it has like these action elements, and obviously like a quick sideline, this is like pre-Devil in Me, of course, and they've added features, haven't they, such as like jump and vault and stuff. It just sort of makes me a little bit more excited for that, because having now played Detroit, where you get these sequences with Marcus where he's just leaping from the container, it's just something a bit extra. And I got to admit, like when I was playing this particular bit, because you've got the drones and the various lights, there was moments where I was following the team, because that's your primary objective, and I was thinking, do I need to stop for a second? Like, am I allowed to run through the light? Is there potential for me to get caught here? But I don't know, I just persevered. I just sort of thought of it as like, if the team are going to be in the light, then surely I can be in the light and not have to fear any consequences. But of course, yeah, like you're there to get blue blood, I think, and you sort of like start to open these crates at the end of this parkour scene, which is cool. And you then get you then see like a guard or like security arrive and approach you, and you then come up with a choice. And I'm trying to think of what the various options were, apart from like grab him.
You can attack him, or you can kind of, I think surrender was one of the options, or come clean. Yeah, I know you decided to grab him, and when his guard comes and asks where the android is, there's more options. So you can release him, you can kill him, or maybe the guard, or you can just keep holding him, which is what you did. Probably the best option, wasn't it? I think you can be happy with what you did there.
Yeah, I didn't want to attract any more attention, which thankfully it panned out. Like there's that sort of tense shot where like the guard comes into view and you're sort of sat there with this other guy, like, God, if he looks around, like, he'll see us. But no, again, like a really nice touch. And it's then sort of brought to the point where you can actually purposely go on and choose to do another little side mission, really, isn't it? And I sort of looked at it like, go big or go home. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to go and do this little side mission where you got to go and get a key. And it's great though, because like when you're approaching this building, you can hear like dogs barking, you can see like the drone drifting around. So I mostly stuck to like one side of the building. I didn't want to explore too much. I just went in through one of these windows, and like you could choose to distract the guards by either like luring them outside, or you can like create a short circuit and cause a blackout. And I did the latter, and I sort of used like certain like shelving at the back of the room to like edge my way round and grab this key and then come back out through the window. But like it's funny because I know there's potential for you to get caught and then you ultimately leave without the key. I don't know, like, I'm glad that I took the risk and it paid off,
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, really good seeing it, because I have seen playthroughs where people have on to do the extra mission, failed it, and you walk out with no blue blood whatsoever. So sometimes it is wise to just take the bags. But obviously you went for the all or nothing, and it paid off. So you did, it was really successful there. I just want to go back to the scene where you look inside the bigger crate, and essentially there's 3 other androids in there, and Marcus kind of stops and looks at it and goes, "Oh, like, do you not want to be free like us?" And he touches them, and they gain consciousness. So it's going to be the start, you'll see, of almost Marcus's new superpower, almost, where you can free androids at a touch, and it'd be really interesting to see what you think of this going forward, since this will be a key feature that you can do. It's really interesting. Marcus is becoming this almost like we said, Neo type liberator leader. Even evidenced by the finale scene where you come back and Simon and Josh and North are super happy with you and say, "Oh, we couldn't have done it without Marcus," and you end it on the big speech like, "I'm alive, we're people too." So yeah, it's almost like the androids are starting to hang together, get a bit of confidence about them now, isn't it? They're no longer hiding, are they?
Yeah, and Marcus really has, in very quick time as well, established himself as somewhat of a leader, because he's the one taking action and starting to make decisions, which is like getting respect from the rest of Jericho. So
of course, especially because for example, when you accepted that a guard could come with you back to Jericho, Josh was all for it, since Josh is kind of like the nicer one. He's like, yeah, take him with. Simon and North weren't happy with that, so their relationship went down, but you gained it back up by having a successful mission. It was really interesting to see that Marcus can actually have different relationships with the group, and based off of the success, that can change the game. So it's dead interesting to see how that one played out, but I think you're doing very well with that so far. You can be pretty happy with your choices. So it goes to Connor. Also, as evidenced by the last scene, we knew that when he was teasing Hank, which is what you did, that he's going to go to this basically like a massive sex club kind of thing.
Yeah.
And we've got the Eden Club, which I really like the design of. Another really cool different setting where everything's sort of pink and neon. It looks like something you'll see straight out of like Blade Runner or Altered Carbon. Even the concept of it, just because it is something that would clearly happen in an AI world where, people, will go to these kind of places where if, the sex can worm its way into any business, it will, and this is clearly what's happened with the AI and, the Eden Club here. Tell us what you thought about the scene. It starts off with you going in the crime scene where Gavin's already there, isn't he? Our favourite friend.
He can't help but have like a little cheeky dig at Hank, and he like sort of like barges past Connor, if I remember rightly. But yeah, like honestly, to echo what you're saying about this this club, again, the visuals are beautiful. Like the colour palette that is on this game is absolutely extraordinary. It's so varied as well. So actually, you've got the crime scene first, and you've got to try and establish how the guy in there was killed. And obviously it was because of a deviant. And you can like scan him, and then there's another body in there. You can actually like bring them back to life. I think you've got to reconnect their power cord or something. But you only bring them back briefly, and there's a couple of choices like where you're trying to get details out of this deviant out of this other android as to what where the deviant went afterwards. And that's really sort of like the premise of this chapter. You're sort of tracking where the deviant went. So like you do go up to other androids and you can like connect with them, and then you see what they see, and you sort of got to use that as a means to track where the deviant went. So of course I was going around a lot connecting to them all. But to cut a long story short, like I ultimately failed this sequence. I think I spent too much time, because you get like 3 minutes, and I was like connecting to near enough every android to sort of see what they could see. And I think I got, well actually I don't know how far I got. I reckon I got to like through 2 or 3 rooms, and then the time went out, and then like him and Hank said, didn't they, like, oh, we've lost them sort of thing, because the memories of the androids get reset. So as a consequence, you can't tap into them to see where the deviant went. But when we looked at the flow chart, it can end up in a warehouse, and then it branches out even more. So I feel like I've missed a lot here by failing that mission.
Yeah, and I will fill in the gaps because I'm, for those who don't know, my playthrough style is I'm very much staying silent sat next to Jack because I want him to have the full experience. But yeah, I also just wanted to note as well, and more Connor and Hank moments, I just really like the fact that Connor has this idea to track the Tracys, that you can connect to the vision of them, and then they can sort of see, they're basically static, they're in one place, so it's a really good idea from Connor. But he doesn't explain it in full detail to Hank why he wants to rent out these essentially sex androids.
Yeah.
And the more you look at, it's like Hank isn't happy. He's like, this is going to look horrible on my expense account. And there's just a nice bit of banter between these two, and it's really funny to see. But yeah, no, really interesting scene. You have to just kind of follow and track where this Tracy went. And you did really well, it goes into the red room, then kind of into the blue room. And I think, I'm pretty sure from memory, it was, there's 2 blue rooms, and I think you weren't fully done on the first one, and I think you skipped to the second.
Right.
So I think you just needed to find one more android in the first blue room there. And essentially, when you go across with that, you will find out that this blue-haired android went, into the storage room, and then it leads into this warehouse, and when you and Hank discover that, you start looking, and you have to follow the trail, and essentially, I can't remember the exact specifics, but you have to inspect this warehouse, and you look at where all these sort of androids are still, and one jumps out at you, and you're having a fight scene with it. And Hank tries to help, and another android fights Hank, and there's you've basically got you're fighting a girl android each, and it's a really tough fight, and for the most part of it you're actually losing. Hank as well, he's getting his ass kicked by this, because it's not like they're humans, these are androids who are really good fighters, because there's no sort of exhaustion on them, and that they are skilled. I think 9 times out of 10, if an android and a human have a fist fight, the android would probably win.
Yeah.
Because they're just more advanced beings, to be honest. But anyway, it leads to outside, and then the androids who get the upper hand on you try to escape. And you notice that the brown-haired android and the blue-haired android that you were tracing before are holding hands, and they're clearly in love.
Okay.
We've got some, lesbian androids here who are just want to escape, and essentially they jump over the fence together to escape. And Hank kind of is just there oh wow, they're in love, and you hold your gun up and you can pull the trigger and kill them. I think that's how it works, so it might just be one of them, or you can spare them and let them be free together. So I don't know what you would have done there.
No, I mean, that's a good question. Because it's weird, if I was playing as Connor, if you playing as Connor, I think he would pick to shoot. But me, I'd probably go to set them free, especially because as Marcus, I'll set them free in the previous chapter.
Yeah.
So I'd have, I'd have probably let them go.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting, because it's one of those ones where Connor is he has these things where he often will have to make choices. The first one, if we look back at the attic where there's the deviant who kills Carlos, you don't get a choice there, you rat out the android, but it's almost like Connor's being tested more and more and more.
Yeah.
You've got the, for example, Rupert on the rooftop, all save Hank, and you can choose to do the ones that accomplish your mission, but then you can choose the more humane options, and it's just so interesting to see the path you take, or kind of whether you do a bit of hit and miss, or if you put all of Connor's traits into one side. So it's just really interesting to see how it goes. And obviously, this is the last chapter we are going to be talking about this episode. It ended on a little bit of a sour note for you, and getting maybe half the Eden Club chapter cut. But I do think that's what is brilliant about these games. They are really challenging, aren't they? And I know, we always compare this game to Supermassive, because that is the bulk of what we have covered on the channel. But I don't know, I don't feel rewarded for completing those games, because the QTEs are just so easy. But with this one, not only are they challenging, not even just in a combat sense, but in a puzzle sense, there are stuff that you end up, failing, but I think it's almost good to get a bit of success and fail in there to kind of make your ending unique and also just all the more challenging. I mean, I don't know if you agree with that.
No, I do. Yeah, it feels like that. I mean, and it's great for a replayability standpoint. 'Cause thinking, I mean, obviously, I now know what happens, but what happens if that mission carries on? It's the exact same with like other scenes previous where like, I actually managed to escape as Cara and Alice, but if you get caught, there's a whole chase scene. Like, it's great for that, but definitely in terms of like success and failure, of course at the time you're like, oh, I wonder what would have happened, but do you know what I mean? At the same time, it's like I think it's more realistic than if you're just constantly succeeding all the time, because it can get a bit too easy and that can pull you out of the experience itself.
That's it, and there's a lot of and I don't want to spoil it too hard, but like obviously the more sort of evidence you collect, the easier like the game might end up being. So it's interesting to miss out on some and gain others. And then, for example, when we look at Heavy Rain, you've got Ethan Mars who has the 5 challenges. Where it starts off with maybe him having to can't remember what the first challenge is now. But like the second one is, when you're in the electric warehouse, you have to go through the obstacles. Yeah. The third one's having to cut your finger off. It gets bigger and bigger, and you can walk away from them. And a lot of people do, especially on the fourth one where it involves murdering someone. So like this all culminates in gaining clues for this anagram at the end. And the more of the challenges you do, the easier the riddle gets. If you complete all 5, you just get given the answer. If you complete 4, you eliminate most of them, but there's still 3 options. So it is one of those ones where like you are really building evidence here. So just a really strong scene, a seed and club scene. But it's, like I say, from my perspective as well, it's interesting because you've had a very successful playthrough, everyone's still alive, but we have had a little bit of like a spanner in the works with the Eden Club here. So really interesting to see how this game goes so far forward. I mean, we're at part 5 of 8, so we're over halfway. But general question, mate, are you enjoying yourself so far?
Oh, absolutely. Like, I know that this has been billed as like one of the best choice-based games. It's certainly met my expectations. It's even gone beyond it in some aspects with like the different, they tap into different genres throughout. And the visuals are obvious, even like the sort of character relationships and the various themes. Like this game, it's so decorated in that sense. So I'm just keen to get on with it, mate.
Sweet. Well, that will be everything for this episode. Join us in the next one for part 6 of 8, where we'll see how Jack begins to carry on. Will his characters keep surviving? He's towards the end of the game. So we'll get to see Jack's conclusion soon. We don't know it yet because we're playing this live. And join in for the next one, guys. We'll see you in the next one.
Bye-bye.